In today's verses from 1 Timothy, Paul writes to Timothy. And when I was younger, these verses sort of spoke differently, right? And now that I'm not quite as young, it sort of begs the question of how do these words speak to me now? Do they speak to me now? And if you find yourself in that same boat, I want to offer you this perspective that yes, Timothy was a young person, and Paul was writing to this young person to say, pay attention to your talents. Don't let older people disparage your talents even at your young age. But there's a way too in which I think he really is simply talking not just to Timothy, but asking Timothy to look for and be aware of Timothy's future self. He's trying to say that you should work on these things. You should devote yourself to these things. Pay attention to these things, not just because of who you are now, but because of who you are becoming, of who you will be. And so that to me is an interesting word from Paul in this letter, is the way in which maybe it's speaking to my future self, maybe just paying attention to the reality that there's a gap between my present self and my future self. And I need to pay attention of how I walk that gap into the future so that I wind up being the person I'm called to be. And if I can identify some of those things, if I can identify some of the things that I need to work on so that I can get to that future self that I would like to be, well, then Paul's words are the same. Devote yourself to these things. Pay attention to these things, because if you do, you can save yourself and others in the process. So pay attention to that future self that you see for you, and note the ways in which you can do small things today and tomorrow and the next day that will help you become the future self that God has intended for you. Amen.